Okay, everyone, are we ready to get into episode 8 of part 3, which is the complete timeline? Again, I know I am. I am so ready to be done with this timeline so that we can start looking into some other things. The OTO being one of them, Trent Bolt being one, Amanda McMahon being one, and looking into some of the theories on other motives from other people. There's some theories about that. And I also wanted to debunk some of the things about Shanann before I end the series, because I feel like some of these rumors, I don't find them to be helpful. I never find a rumor to be helpful in any situation. I know that there have been people who have said the Rusiks don't want anyone talking about this case anymore, and I can completely understand that. However, I'm not doing a lot of the things that the channels they're talking about are doing. I'm going after someone who has nothing to do with them. And I do have to say that if there is information that they were privy to that we aren't, I can understand that. However, what I don't understand is if the investigation was stopped after Chris's confession that he took Shanann's life, which was very early on, it was on the 15th, once he said that, they stopped really looking. Now, there was another detective, Detective Michael Prill, that's where a lot of this information is coming from, who was still looking into the case. He wanted more of Nichol Kessinger's phone records. He wanted her pings, where she was. And he was trying to get that information. He filed all of that at the end of October of 2018. And then all of a sudden, November rolls around and Chris takes the plea deal stating that he murdered all three. So that's where some of this confusion comes in. How can they have seen proof that it wasn't her or that she didn't have something to do with it when none of that information was ever even gathered? They didn't have any of that information yet. Michael Prill was petitioning for that at the end of October. That's when he submitted his report. I don't remember the exact date. And then he goes and confesses at the beginning of November. So I just find it very strange that once they wanted to dig more into Nichol Kessinger's whereabouts and phone records, and, he was making notes about Jim. And then all of a sudden he signs this plea deal and it's done. Something that I do think they may have seen to know that Chris did, in fact, take all three of their lives would have been some of the home camera footage, or at least the sound. However, allegedly, until February 18th of 2019, they did not know that Chris had murdered the girls at Cervi 319, that they were alive when they left the house. And we don't know if that's true. And they believed it. So do you see what I'm saying? How do they know that Chris was the only one involved if the murder of the girls didn't even happen at the house? And they have not confirmed that because they believed that February 18th confession where he said he killed the girls at Cervi 319. I remember Sandy even said she was the one who did not want the death penalty for Chris Watts. But as she said in that Dr. Phil interview, had she known that he took the girls' lives at Cervi 319 the way that he did, and that Bella had to watch her sister die and then beg for her own life, she would have second-guessed not wanting the death penalty for Chris.
Make any sense.
So that's what I'm saying. What information is this? What did they see? Now, with all due respect for the Rusiks, if they want to tell me to stop doing what I'm doing, I will. I am never going to proceed with a case if a family tells me they don't want me to. But I do have to say that I don't believe I am one of the people that they are talking about, because I'm not exploiting the case. I'm not exploiting Shanann. I'm not making up false information. There was a lot of that footage that people have seen where they're saying, oh, there's two people there at the same time and things like that. Those were doctored by another creator. That's why when you look at my footage, I've had some comments on my footage that I've shown. I don't see anything. Where's the two people? This is edited. No, it's the opposite. It's not been edited. And that's why you don't see it. Because I'm not using false videos. you know, I like to just go off on these tangents every once in a while because I do believe that I get stuck in this timeline and I just start going through that. But there's so much more that needs to be said, and I want to make sure that I say it. A lot of this is in response to comments that I'm getting. So, okay, I hope that answered some questions or at least made some more things clear that maybe were murky. All right, let's get into the rest of the timeline for August 14th. And August 15th is going to be a video on its own. So we're going to finish August 14th. There's going to be 10 episodes. I'm just going to cut it off at 10. So this is episode 8. So there's 2 more for the timeline. And then we are going to get into some of these other things. Trent Bolt, theories, OTO, Jim. We're going to get more into Jim. Okay, so this series is far from over. I can't even tell you how much longer it's going to continue. It's going to continue for quite a bit longer, I can imagine. All right. We left off at 1:24 p.m. where Nichol Atkinson left the area near 5968. And someone asked, someone commented, why all of that with Nichol Atkinson at the end? It was to show that there was nothing to it. Because I've seen those Life 360 maps on other people's channels, and they want to say, you know, that it was a nefarious type deal. Why would you leave here, go here, and come back here all within this time frame? And I was trying to show that there's a McDonald's there, there's a Walgreens there, there's a bank there, there's a tire place there. That you could be there for an hour getting a tire replaced, or all your tires replaced, or whatever the case may be. I really don't see anything nefarious about that stop. And that movement on her Life 360. And that's why I brought it up, because I wanted to show the area. There's plenty of things she could be doing there for that amount of time. So yeah, that was the last thing that we talked about. Now we are in still August 14th, 2018. It is 2 p.m. And Troy McCoy gets a call from an officer who leaves a voicemail about needing to speak to him about the case.
Hello, this message is for Troy McCoy. This is Officer Walgie with the Frederick Police Department. I was wondering if you could give me a call back on my cell. I was calling you with regard to, we're working on trying to find a missing person. Christopher Watts, I believe that you work with him, gave your name as someone that he was going to meet yesterday in the early morning, possibly with, or that you work out at a site where he was going to be working. So anyway, he gave your name. I was just wanted to talk to you. A couple questions with regard to Chris. That would be it. So if you can give me a call, again, Officer Walgie, W-A-L-J-E of the Frederick Police Department. I'm currently here, I should say, and I can talk to you at the office if you feel more comfortable calling that number.
At this point, Troy was heading back to Cervi 319 when that call came in. So we all heard that Troy went back to Cervi 319. So 2 p.m. on the 14th is when he headed back to Cervi. Chris Ostrander from MTP, a vacuum truck driver, said that he was last at Cervi 319 on August 14th to vacuum out the pit. At 2:12 p.m., Troy McCoy showed up at Cervi 319, and Troy estimated that he was there for 10 to 15 minutes or so. Chris Ostrander said that while he was at Cervi, an Anadarko operator came and parked east of the oil pump head. Chris Ostrander said that he had never seen anyone park so far away from the tanks. The area that Troy parked is the area where Chris Watts was parked and where Shanann Watts' body was recovered. Chris Ostrander said that he spoke with the operator who said he was there looking for a wrench that he had lost from leaving it on his rear bumper or tailgate. This operator was Troy McCoy. Troy McCoy and his wrench. Man, does he sleep with it too? He sure does talk about it a lot, doesn't he? I mean, it's the reason he got an O2 hit, allegedly. And now here, it's the reason he needed to return to Cervi 319, allegedly. Anyway, Troy was the one who signed Chris Ostrander's job site analysis on August 14th. Troy also said that Kodi Roberts was at Cervi 319 on August 14th as well, but Troy didn't know what time Kodi was there.
Do you know who else has been out at that location since
Kodi Roberts was out at that location on Tuesday. He had to do something out there. I think Kodi Roberts was out there, though.
Do you remember about what time?
No, sir, I don't. That's just from Kodi talking to me.
Okay.
Telling me that he was out of location.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nikki said that most of the texting between her and Chris was her checking up on the situation. Nikki said after seeing on the internet that Shanann was 15 weeks pregnant, that she texted Chris, quote, "She's pregnant," unquote, and he told her the baby was not his. Nikki said, "I thought you said yesterday that she cheated on you out of spite," and Chris replied, quote, "Yeah," unquote. Nikki then said, "So it is your kid." Nikki said that he kept worrying about their relationship, as in his and Nikki's, and he asked Nikki, "Does this ruin everything with us?" And Nikki said no. Nikki said Chris told her that he had opened up a second bank account so that he could start saving money for an apartment. Nikki said that she told him that he needed to be thinking about his family right now and he needed to focus on finding all 3 kids. She said, quote, "I kept emphasizing that he had 3 kids," unquote. "I told him, I know the kid is yours, go find your family." I asked Chris, quote, "Why can't you just be honest with me? Stop lying to me," unquote. Chris told me that it was his child and that he knew about it. She said, okay, and again, he asked her if that ruined things between them. Nikki said she told him no, but in reality, she was done. She was just trying to appease him at that point. She said, "I told him everything was good and to call me once he found his family." Chris told Nikki, quote, "Just don't forget the person you knew me to be," unquote. Nikki said she told Chris to delete his text messages from her because she didn't want Chris's friends to see them. I kept asking Chris what happened to his family and, quote, "What did you do, Chris? What did you do?" unquote. Nikki said she kept telling him that she was scared and felt like she didn't know him anymore.
I think most of the texting throughout that day was kind of like, have you heard anything? Like, what's going on? It was kind of like me checking up on him. And I don't remember everything, but it wasn't, I didn't even make it through the entire workday. Like, I was feeling really, really sick, like, in general. And then I decided on my lunch break to get on the internet and look at what was going on with all the reports. And I saw a report that was like, this woman who's 15 weeks pregnant and her 2 daughters are missing. And I was like, whoa, what? And I was just like so floored. And I read a couple other articles just to make sure that, you know, all the newspapers are. And like just double check, like, am I really reading this right? And I'm like, okay. And he had told me previously, like, she says she's pregnant with another man's kid, but he'd said, like, he could kind of tell in North Carolina. But that girl is, like, obviously pregnant. I mean, in her photos. I mean, 15 weeks, that's like 4 months. That's pretty far along. And so it's like, how would you not know if she's showing? Like, you totally know she's showing. And so, oh my God, I got so sick. I was just like, I need to go. I just, like, packed my stuff and I left work. And I went home and I remember I told Jim that I was going to get home early, and he wanted to come over right away, and I was just like, I just needed some time to, like, process what was going on. But I did tell him, I was like, you can come over earlier than you did yesterday, because he didn't want to wait in traffic. That was the thing. He's like, save me some time. So I don't remember what time he got there. I probably still have that text, because I don't have any reason to delete those. But he came over a little early, but I did have, like, a gap of time in there. I don't know how long it was. I bet it was, like, from the time I got home to the time Jim got there, but it was probably, like, I don't know, hour and a half maybe, somewhere around there. I remember talking to Chris during this time, and it was, like, all text. I did not talk to him on the phone at all on Tuesday. And I was pretty upset, where I was just, like, you know, I was going back and forth, like, where's your family, this and this and this, but I'm like, she's pregnant, you know, and this and this, and he's like, the baby's not mine, and I'm just like, you told me yesterday that you think that when she said that she cheated on you, she did it out of spite, and he was like, yeah, and I'm like, so then it's your kid, and he kept denying it, and then, like, he started, like, kind of worrying about us. He'd just be like, well, does this ruin everything with us, this and this and this? And I'm like, no. I'm like just trying to, like, his situation is so much more important right now than, like, our situation.
But his main concern is you and him.
kind of, sort of. I mean, and I keep, like, asking him, like, I'm like, and I told him numerous times, which is also in the text that you guys will pull, where I'm just like, you need to focus on finding your kids and your wife right now. And I was like, and you need to focus on finding all 3 of your kids. And I, like, kept, like, emphasizing to him, like, he had 3 kids, you know? And, like, I wasn't even, like, mad about it. I was just like, you need to find your family.
Did he ever go look for them that you know of?
I don't know. I don't think so. That, like, doesn't even, like, ring a bell to me, so I don't think so.
Okay.
But, oh, and I forgot something else that's really important. I will add it in there, too, but let me just finish this thought. So then, Tuesday, what were we talking about? Oh, yeah. So I kept telling him, I was like, Chris, I know it's yours. It's okay. I was like, go find your family, you know? And it's like, was I hurt? Yes. But at the time I realized, like, his situation with what he had going on was, like, way more important than, like, our situation. And so that's why I was just like I confronted him about it, and then I was like, you need to go find them. And, like, we talked about it for a little while, and then I was just like, I don't remember exactly how it went, but something along the lines where I was like, why can't you just be honest with me? I was like, stop lying to me. Like, stop lying.
Did you have an inclination? You've talked to this man a lot, and during this Tuesday, Wednesday conversation, did you feel like he was bullshitting you?
A little bit, kind of, yeah. I mean, because he was like, not Monday. Monday I did not. But Tuesday, yeah, that's when it all started to click. I was like, oh my goodness, because he was like, well, like, he just didn't seem as, like, concerned as he should be, and he was, like, super worried about shit with us, and I'm just like...
So concerned about his family and overly concerned about your relationship.
Yes.
Okay.
And I kept, like, trying to put it on the back burner, and shame on me for bringing it up in the first place. I was just really taken back, like, wait a minute. She's 15 weeks, like, how would you not notice that? Like, I was just, like, I was confused. And I was also like, is he lying to me? And I kind of wanted to know because I realized that, like, there's a situation at hand here, and I'm just like, what is going on? You know, and for part of it wasn't even, like, me trying to find out because I'm upset. It was almost like me trying to find out because I'm like, is there something else I'm missing here? Like, I felt like there was, like, pieces to this puzzle that I didn't know existed that were, like, not in place, and it was strange. And so, anyways, I told him, I was like, be honest with me. I was like, don't lie. And I don't remember exactly how it went, but I was like trying to emphasize, like, stop bullshitting me. So he told me the truth. And he told me it was his, and then he knew about it.
Okay.
I was like, okay. And then he asked me again, like, did that ruin everything? And I was like, no, it didn't. And in the back of my head, it's like, yeah, I'm done. I'm not dealing with that. Don't lie to me. But his situation is so critical right now that's, like, I'm not going to, like, ruffle his mental feathers because they're already, like, really ruffled because of the situation. So, like, out of respect for his mental health, I just, like, dropped it. And I just kept telling him, like, we're okay, we're okay, we're okay. But
how many times do you think he asked you during these phone calls?
Oh, it wasn't a phone call. This was text.
Pardon me.
Text Tuesday.
Text Tuesday. How many times do you think he brought up your relationship and if you guys were okay?
Probably like 2 or 3 times.
And how many times did he bring up concern for his children or his wife?
I think he brought it up a lot too. I mean, he kept telling me that he was, like, worried about them.
Okay.
I mean, it happened. It wasn't like he was just, like, spaced out. I mean, he was definitely showing that too. I was just surprised that he was, like, also showing it for me. Because at that moment, if I had some crazy stuff going on with somebody in my family, I would be putting all my relationship stuff on hold. Like, look, like, baby, I got to deal with this. Someone in my family is missing. When I find them, we will talk. So Tuesday, after that conversation, I told him, I was like, I told him to delete his text because I knew he was, like, going crazy texting me, and I didn't want any of his friends to see him texting me because I don't think they knew about me. It had nothing to do with you guys. It was just like, I mean, and you'll see him, you know.
The secrecy of your relationship.
Pretty much. And I just, like, feel like he was, like, texting me so much openly, and he had friends there that I was like, I didn't want them to see that. And so I was, like, trying to get him to slow down. And then I told him, too, like, after he lied to me, I was just kind of like, I was done. And I was trying to find a way to, like, get away from the situation without alarming him or panicking him. So I told him, like, everything is all good. I'm still here for you. And I feel bad because, like, I lied to him. But, I mean, I, like, just try to keep him calm. And then I told him, like, contact me once they find your family. And then we'll talk.
That was Tuesday?
That was Tuesday.
Okay.
And he sent me a text back saying something along the lines of like, what did he say? Something like, please just think of, and like I kept telling him I was scared. I was really freaking scared. Yeah, so then once he lied to me, I just really trying to like push him away, and he was like, just don't forget like the person that you knew me to be when you were with me or something like that. And like, it
Was that strange?
It just kind of sounded almost like a farewell, and like I didn't think it was too weird because I was like, I think he realizes that I'm really upset that he lied to me, and I think he's aware of the fact that I'm probably about to walk away from him. So I think that was like his way of like saying goodbye. So it didn't really seem strange in the context of what was going on between like the him and I part of stuff. And then, and I kept asking him too, like, what did you do, Chris? What did you do? And he was like, I didn't do anything.
Here's a time where Nikki says she had just texted Chris about the pregnancy after seeing it on her lunch break on the news Tuesday the 14th. But she also says they had that conversation yesterday, which would have been the 13th, the day of the murders. And she said Chris told her Shanann said the baby wasn't his out of spite. So if she knew on the 13th, why is she re-confronting him on the 14th as if she just found out during her lunch break at 11 a.m. on Tuesday the 14th? You see what I'm saying? These are the things that's like you can't explain it. They're coming out of her own mouth and they're not making sense. 2:19 p.m. Kelly Burke texted Chris, quote, anything new, unquote. Chris told her that he talked to 3 different news crews and the dogs swept the house for a scent. Did he even know that those were cadaver dogs? Swept the house for a scent, and he's thinking that they're just sniffing for the scent so that they can find them. Did he not realize those were cadaver dogs? They were there to see if there was a dead body in the house. And that one of those dogs hit at least once. 2:20 p.m. Nikki calls Jim for 3 minutes. She's in Thornton. She's at home. This may have been the call where she told Jim that he could come over earlier than he did the day prior because she had left work sick at noon. So she and Jim are both sick, right? They're unable to keep food down.
I'm so hungry.
You should have told me. I would have got you some food. I got food in my car.
It's not staying down. It's just coming.
She hadn't been feeling good. Not because of any, just...
Like, I got sick prior to
Jim.
this whole thing happening, and then I think all of this compounding with the fact that I'm sick, it's just not good. I've not really been eating or sleeping much at all.
Yet, Jim is still going back to Nikki's apartment. This is all just very weird to me. Like I said in the last video. Yet I do have to say, if Nikki was completely blindsided by all of this, then I can understand her wanting a confidant with her. And according to both Nikki and her father, Jim is a longtime good friend of Nikki.
No.
So he's just a friend of yours.
Yes.
He does not was coming to your apartment.
And we've known Jim for years and years.
You're not dating him or anything like that?
No, he's like one of my very good friends. Like, my dad knows him. He's a great guy. He works out of state a lot, so when he's in town, we hang out. But when he's in town and he's off of work, to save time, so I give him a key to my house, 1, because I trust him and he's one of my best friends, and 2, because sometimes he will just meet me there.
I just think it's a coincidence. And also a good thing that he just happened to be in town at the exact time all of this was going on, right? I mean, he couldn't have picked a better time to be back in town to comfort Nichol Kessinger. At 2:21 p.m., Chris added Fox 31 Denver to his contacts. 2:30 p.m., Chris texts Troy, quote, a nightmare and a circus, dude. I just want them to come running back through the door. I'm guessing everyone at work knows, unquote. Always worried about what other people are thinking of him. After sending that text to Troy at 2:30 p.m., Chris called Sandy, Shanann's mom and held a 10-minute conversation. Nick and Amanda Thayer were there with Chris, and they overheard this conversation. They said they heard Chris say something like, quote, "The longer this goes on, the more I think they might be hurt or in danger," unquote. 2:31 p.m., Ann Meadows, the realtor, calls the police department and requested to speak with someone about the missing persons case. After Nikki sent her last text to Chris, where she said that all was good between them, but to contact her after he found his family, Jim arrives at her apartment. Nikki said she went into her bedroom and she texted Chris one last time saying, quote, "If you did something bad, you will ruin your life. You will ruin my life, and I promise you that," unquote. She said Chris told her, quote, "I didn't hurt my family, Nikki," unquote.
And then Jim got there at my house, and I was hanging out with Jim. But I was still, like, in my head, just kind of, like, stressed out. And I remember I, like, walked out of the room, went in my bedroom, and texted Chris one more time. And I told him, I was like, if you did something bad, I was like, you're going to ruin your life. And I was like, and if you did something bad, I was like, you're going to ruin my life. And I was like, and I promise you that. And he responded back to me, and he's like, I didn't hurt my family, Nikki. And that was like the last text. That was the last time we ever talked. And I never said another word to him after that.
That was Tuesday.
That was Tuesday.
2:32 p.m., Nichol Atkinson leaves the area that she had been with for the last hour and a half and appears to drive back over to the area of the Watts home before going to her own home. That was what I was talking about at the beginning. Nichol Atkinson arrives at her home at 3:04 p.m. This total trip was 13 miles and lasted 32 minutes. Also, in my opinion, the drive back near the Watts home is her being concerned and not knowing what to do. I mean, think about it. And this is just my opinion, of course, but one of your closest friends is missing. You want to do whatever it takes to find them, but you really can't. You basically have two choices. Search for them yourself, or go about your life and wait for someone to call with an update, right? What would you do? Personally, I don't think sitting around at home would be enough for me. I would be racking my brain trying to figure out where my friend and her babies could be. The waiting and not knowing would be extremely hard, and just sitting at my house doing nothing would have driven me crazy. On the other hand, Nichol Atkinson also has her own life. She surely had her own schedule to follow that week. I'm just saying, while I do think it is important to talk about Nichol Atkinson's whereabouts within a deep dive on this case, I don't think they warrant their own investigation. Again, that's just my opinion. 2:33 p.m., CBI agent Jillian Gamley received notification from CBI agent Tammy Lee that that second canine did not substantiate the hit from the first canine. So they went ahead and they upgraded the missing persons alert to endangered missing, which meant that the Watts case became a high priority. This alert went out at 3:20 p.m. on Tuesday, August 14th. Over the hour after that alert went out, Agent Gamley received calls from both Tammy Lee and Kevin Kovac asking that she run background checks on all involved. Now, all involved, I'm not sure who that all consists of. I don't know. I do know Jim was never spoken to. Daniel Hadall was never spoken to. There's no record of them being spoken to. So you would think that that would be important, right? Because they could say, we were with Nikki all of these times. She was nowhere near there. At 2:45 p.m., Jamie Watts, Chris's sister, was talking to the media and then seemed to have a change of heart in the middle of her conversation and told the media that she shouldn't be talking to them, and then she hung up on them. Also at 2:45 p.m., Troy replied to Chris, quote, "Yes, they know. It's all over Facebook." Troy continued, quote, "Some people have been asking me what's going on, and I tell them that I don't know anything other than what the police are saying. I hope they can find them soon for you, man. If you need to get out of the house for a bit, you are more than welcome at my place," unquote. 2:57 p.m., CSO Scarlett reported that the garage door of the Watts home opened. Scarlett was able to see the white Lexus inside and observed Chris walk from the front passenger side to the rear of the white Lexus, open up the back hatch, and place what appeared to be a square bag with pink flowers, with white behind the flowers, into the back of the SUV. He then proceeded to grab a cloth-like item that was already in the back of the SUV and placed it into the bag. He then closed the hatch and walked back to the passenger side of the SUV and out of sight. Then the garage door closed. I wonder what was in the bag. I also wonder what the quote-unquote cloth-like item was. At 3 p.m., Chris responded to Troy, quote, "I know, man, thanks," unquote. Troy replied, quote, "No problem," unquote. Also, at 3 p.m., Sergeant Harper of Longmont Police Department was contacted by Sergeant Egan of the Frederick Police Department to assist on a missing person's possible homicide investigation. The sergeant advised that a female subject and her 2 children were reported missing from 2825 Saratoga Trail in Frederick, Colorado. He further advised that the circumstances of the incident were suspicious in nature. He requested the assistance of Longmont Police Department's SEU for surveillance operations of the male subject identified as the female's husband. SEU was advised that the male subject was last observed at the residence loading into a white Lexus SUV. 3:03 p.m., Addie Maloney texts Chris asking what the next steps are. Chris told her that they are searching and that Good Morning America contacted his sister. I don't know why that matters to Addie, but apparently Chris found it important to flex that Good Morning America was interested in his family. Eddie tells him to stay strong and tells him that he will get through this. Chris said, quote, "I will stay as strong as I can," unquote. I mean, a million things that man could have said, and that is what he chose to go with. Addie asked, quote, "Are you a believer in prayer?" unquote. Chris said, quote, "Always," unquote. Addie told him they are praying for him and his family and asked about any recent updates from police. Now, Chris isn't yet aware of this, but the most recent update from the police is that he's now the #1 suspect in the disappearance and possible homicide of his missing pregnant wife and 2 daughters. Completely ignorant to that fact, Chris tells Addie that there are news crews doing live updates on the corner of his street. Basically, if you want to know, turn on the news. 3:04 p.m., Nicole Atkinson arrives at home, as I said earlier, and she stays there for 2 hours and 12 minutes until 5:17 p.m. 3:09 p.m., Chris texts Troy saying, quote, "This is the scariest thing I've ever experienced," unquote. Also, at 3:09 p.m., MPO Ownby from the Longmont Police Department gang unit was tasked with the physical surveillance of, quote, "suspect Christopher Watts," unquote. 3:14 p.m., Troy replied to Chris, quote, "I can't even imagine what you are going through, man. Do you have family or friends there with you so you're not just going crazy?" unquote. 3:15 p.m., Sandy Rusick called Frederick Police Department saying that she really wants Shanann's luggage from Arizona searched because it had been untouched since her trip. 3:17 p.m., CSO Scarlett noted the garage door opening again and then closed again. 3:20 p.m., the endangered missing alert goes out. 3:30 p.m., Chris replies to Troy that Amanda and Nick are with him and have been talking to news crews all day with him. Troy replied, quote, "Okay, I just wanted to make sure that you were not alone during all of this. I wish there was something I could do to help," unquote. Chris replied, quote, "I don't know, man. I really don't," unquote. Troy replied, quote, "I will just keep praying that they find them soon. Keep me in the loop if you can, man. If you ever need to talk to anyone, call me anytime," unquote. At 3:40 p.m., Nikki made that post about Shanann and the girls being missing, as well as a plea for help in finding them. It reads, "Please, please share and pray that beautiful Shanann Watts and her 2 precious daughters are found safe. They are from the Erie and Frederick, Colorado area. Shanann Watts and her 2 daughters, Bella and Celeste, are missing. She made it home to Colorado from Scottsdale at 2 a.m. Her husband left for work at 5 a.m., but Shanann never made it to the school for the girls' first day back. Her car and phone were found at home, but these 3 have not been found. Shanann is 15 weeks pregnant. Thank you and God bless." 3:43 p.m., Chris responded to Troy, quote, "Thanks, man," unquote. At 4 p.m., Nick and Amanda left the Watts house to go pick up their daughter from school. They offered Chris to stay with them at their house, and Chris agreed, saying that he would be over in a little bit. After a little bit of time passed, Nick called Chris and asked him if he was still coming. Chris told Nick that Fox News was still in his front yard, and he was concerned how it would look if he left with a bag of clothes. Again, always worried about what other people think. And his image. He's worried about his image. And in my opinion, that was part of the motive. Him protecting his image. I know I've brought it up before, and I'll be bringing it up again, because I do think it played a huge role in this. 5 p.m. to 5:25 p.m., Nikki makes an assortment of searches, such as, quote, "Can cops trace text messages?" unquote. 5:24 p.m., Nikki searches, "How long do phone companies keep text messages?" 5:25 p.m., Nikki searches difference between text message content and text message detail. 5:17 p.m., Nichol Atkinson leaves her home to go to work in Boulder. It was a 22-mile drive that took her 44 minutes. She arrived at work at 6:02 p.m. Now we know Nichol Atkinson did hair, and she also was a licensed CNA, so that was her CNA job. That's why she worked overnight. 5:26 p.m., Nikki searches, quote, "Can you get printouts of text messages?" unquote. 5:33 p.m., Sandy Rusick called Frederick Police Department and told them she may have a lead on the situation. 5:34 p.m., Jeremy and Jennifer Lindstrom were interviewed by the CBI. At 6 p.m., Chris had a calendar entry titled, quote-unquote, "talk," scheduled to begin at this time. Between 6 and 6:30 p.m., Chris called his father Ronnie and told him about the interrogation and that the police had searched the house. Ronnie told Chris that he was going to fly out to be with him during this time. Ronnie scheduled a flight from North Carolina to Denver that would be leaving at 5 a.m. the following morning. 6:02 p.m., Nichol Atkinson arrived at work, and she stays there for 12 hours, 11 minutes, until 6:13 a.m. 6:12 p.m., Addie Maloney called the Frederick Police Department requesting to speak with an officer about the Watts missing persons case. 6:13 p.m., Chris responded to an email for his fantasy football team, letting them know that he was in. 6:21 p.m., Nikki searched the internet for news accounts of this incident and Shanann's name. All of these searches were deleted by Nichol Kessinger. Detective Prill made a note saying that these searches were conducted frequently by Nikki throughout the next several days, that she deleted every single one of those searches afterward. At 6:36 p.m., Chris told Nick Thayer that he was leaving now to come over. He said he was stopping for gas and would then be there. Officer Ownby said during this time there was a storm and garbage cans were blown all around. He said he observed Chris putting the bins back where they had come from when the storm was over.
Oh boy.
It was also around this time that Chris's interview was aired on TV. It was this interview that got everyone who knew Chris, and even people who didn't know him, suspicious as hell.
To figure out like if they can get a scent, see where they went. If they went on foot, they went in a car, or they went somewhere. And right now it's just like they've been on point. They're going through the house trying to get a scent, and hopefully they can pick something up to where it's going to lead to something.
What happened? Your wife came home. Tell me what's.
She came home from the airport 2 a.m. and I left around 5:15. She was still here, and like about 12:10 in that afternoon, her friend Nicole showed up at the door. Like I had texted Shanann a few times that day, called her, say but she never got back to me. But she wasn't getting back to any of her people as well, and that's what really concerned a lot of people. Is like if she's not getting back to her, like if she doesn't get back to me, that's fine. Like she gets busy during the day, but she didn't get back to her people, which was very concerning. And Nicole called me when she was at the door, and that's when I came home. And then walked in the house and nothing was vanished. Nothing was here.
He looked, quote unquote, off to just about everyone. Given what was known at the time publicly, Chris Watts appeared emotionally removed, I guess I could say, and to friends and family, he appeared to be very disingenuous in his concern and also very nervous. Not at all what they would expect given the status of the situation. I mean, it has now been 2 full days that his family's been missing, gone without a trace. And he's kind of smiling, smirking, he's brushing things off, and he seems very insincere in his plea for their return. Now, I know none of us know how we would react unless we were in a situation like this, and I hope none of us ever are. However, more often than not, when someone ends up being charged and later convicted of a crime, you can tell by their social media plea that there's deception. Body language coupled with facial expressions and even the things that they say that just don't seem genuine to many people. I did a case, I did the Orrin and Orson West case. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. The parents, the foster parents of them, they were so weird looking on the news interviews. The guy's standing, with his arms over his body, in a kind of a guarded stance. They were not maintaining eye contact. They just seemed like they weren't bothered. They seemed very emotionless, I guess I would say. And sure enough, I did that case before the trial and everything when it first broke. And sure enough, they were convicted of the murder of those boys. And you could see it. You could see it from day one. This behavior, in my opinion, comes from pretending that someone has emotions that they don't really have, right? They're acting as though they don't know anything when in actuality, they know everything. And that's a tough role to perform. And some people are really good at this, but Chris Watts was definitely not one of those people. You can take into consideration that he hated the camera all you want, but no one can convince me that he had any emotional response to what was going on. Then you look at his behaviors, like answering a fantasy football email and his underwhelming text message responses that are primarily focused on him. 6:28 p.m., Sandy called the Frederick Police Department again after viewing Chris's interview, noting that he had said that his kids were fine and then corrected himself at the end of the video, and she requested they watch the interview. Sometime around 6:30 p.m., Officer Ownby observed Chris exit the garage in the white Lexus SUV. He exited the driveway eastbound out of sight for a few moments. Surveillance units then observed him stopped at a brown Ford pickup. This was identified as Chris's work truck. Again, remember, he moved it out of sight that day before. Remember, Nikki said she told him to do this so that Shanann wouldn't see his truck if she came home, which makes no sense to me because, again, like I said in the last video, Chris knew that that wasn't going to happen. So why did he actually move it? It's not like Nikki was going to be there to see him do it. Well, as it turns out, according to the observations of Officer Ownby's surveillance, Chris was stopped at his, quote, out of sight, unquote, work truck for several minutes with the rear hatch of the Lexus open and all 4 doors of the truck opened as well. He then departed, but immediately returned back to the truck for a few more moments. Doing what? I don't know. It was not listed what exactly he was doing. I don't know if they couldn't see. I don't know if they didn't think it was important. I don't know. I do find it strange that there's not more notes to this. He was then observed taking off in the Lexus out of the neighborhood, traveling directly to I-25 southbound. And he had a tail the whole time. 6:42 p.m., Chris returned a call to Frederick Police Department that he had missed earlier. 6:46 p.m., Detective Baumhover asked Chris if he would be open to another interview. Chris agreed, and he arrived to Frederick Police Department later that evening at approximately 8 p.m. As a result of that phone call with Detective Baumhover, Chris flipped a U-turn and traveled west back to I-25 northbound. He got off at Highway 52 and ultimately traveled directly to Frederick Police Department for that requested interview. 6:59 p.m., Chris made a brief call to the Thayers. Nick told Chris that they would meet him at Frederick Police Department and wait for him to finish. At 7:01 p.m., Sandy called police back to ask them to check the baby monitors. She told them the location of the monitors and cameras. 7:03 p.m., Sandy called back and asked them not to tell Chris about the baby monitors. 7:10 p.m., Officer Perez, one of the officers who was with Officer Kate Lines canvassing the neighborhood, said that he spoke with a woman who did not know the Watts but was aware of the situation. The woman stated that the only suspicious thing that she had noted was an older gray Ford truck that stopped to dump out his beer can and then came back later to retrieve it. The woman's address was 6328 Steeple Rock Drive. At first, I was thinking it might be Chris Watts' truck because I consider it to be gray, not brown, but he parked his truck on Saratoga Trail in the 6501 area. So it was not Chris's truck. Something that's kind of irritating is the neighborhood canvassing notes. They're sloppy, in my opinion. So you have to go back to the body cam footage to get accuracy on what all was said. It is my opinion that police were so honed in on Chris Watts as the one and only suspect from jump. And you can tell this from all of the notes. And because of this, they didn't appear to really follow up on any of the other information that was reported. You will see more evidence of this in the next couple of days. It's just something I've noticed. If the information being reported didn't have to do with Chris Watts acting alone, it wasn't thought of as relevant information. And that's just my opinion based on the evidence in discovery. Officer Perez remarked that this was the one and only neighbor that he made contact with before being called away to handle other calls for service.
I mean, tonight we noticed something weird, which a couple of you guys were sitting down here in this gray truck. He, dumps out his beer can, and then, leaves it there, goes down around the block, comes back, picks it up, and, kind of tears out of here. We're like, what is that about?
In a gray truck?
Yeah, he got his license plate.
Did you call it in?
No.
Do you happen to have it still?
Yeah. But I was like, you're going to dump your beer can and then you're going to come back for it when the cops are sitting right there?
Right.
That was weird.
Yes, welcome to our world.
Did you get a good look at the guy or no?
Yeah.
He
Roughly. If he did, that's fine.
He had a backwards cap on.
Yeah.
Like a hoodie.
Yeah, maybe 20s, 30s.
White male?
The gray truck with the camper shell.
It was a Ford.
It was a Ford?
Yeah.
Ford?
Mm-hmm.
Did they have the camper shell? What color was it?
The camper shell?
It was
tinted
same
windows?
color as his car.
Yeah, it was gray too.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah, that was the only weird thing we saw tonight. We're like, what?
Newer, older?
It was an older model Ford.
Older
not
model
one of the newer ones.
Okay.
I mean, the dumping out of the beer is one thing. It's the coming back to retrieve it later that has 3 letters flashing in my mind. Can anyone guess those 3 letters? Yes. DNA. What else? You gonna try to tell me that this man had a change of heart about littering? I mean, it could be. It's just a little coincidental, if you ask me. 7:15 p.m., Luke Eppel was interviewed by phone. Luke told law enforcement that Chris had been working for him since 2016. 7:21 p.m., Addie texted Chris, quote, "Have you heard anything?" unquote. Chris texted back, quote, "I'm talking to the FBI now," unquote. Addie asked what that means. 7:30 p.m., Luke Eppel's phone interview ends, and Nick and Amanda arrive at Frederick Police Department to wait for Chris. 7:49 p.m., Cindy Jurassic calls Frederick Police Department with additional information she wanted to share. At 8 p.m., Chris's interview with the FBI began. While he had been there for a while already, he was giving his written statement. He is now about to be formally questioned as a suspect, though he doesn't know that yet, although I am sure it has crossed his mind quite a few times by now. 8:10 p.m., Chris texted David Colon that he was currently talking to the FBI. At 8:40 p.m., Nick Thayer texted Chris that they were in the parking lot waiting for him. Nick told Chris that an investigator friend of his recommended that Chris maybe not talk to law enforcement without a lawyer, though Nick realized that the text may not reach Chris in time. 9 p.m., Nikki said that Jim left her apartment between 9 and 10 p.m. It was also between 9 and 10 p.m. that Chris's cell phone was taken in for a data search. The contents of the phone were downloaded and then copied to a USB. Both were returned to Detective Baumhofer. 11 p.m., after confirming that a woman and 2 young girls spotted at Walmart were not Chris's missing wife and daughters, Chris left the police station, agreeing with law enforcement that he would be back the next day for more questioning.
Hey Chris, thanks for coming in. Yep. So I've been doing some other things while you were here. And we've had people calling in, stuff like that. So there was a sighting at Walmart. One of your kiddos, is Bella the oldest?
Yes.
She have long hair?
Well, if you let the curls down.
How long?
So the curls would probably come like right here.
Okay. So this is a picture from surveillance. You see that?
Yeah, it's just the hair color looks a little off.
Yeah. I mean, look how long that braid is. Does that look right?
No, that braid's too long.
Is that like your wife?
Hair's too long.
Okay. That's what I thought too. So.
Great. Yeah, the hair looks a little too long.
We're trying, buddy.
Okay.
We are trying.
Very angle.
That would be CC in the back though. That was her.
Yeah.
Oh, that's where she would sit?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Chilling.
Bella rolling the roof up there?
Yes. Most times there's something in there, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because Bella, it's really... That's the picture I was talking about. Yeah.
And this is CC, right?
Yep.
And that's Bella?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, great, thank you.
All right, we're ready.
Do I take this or no? This is...
Please leave all that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you get your dad tomorrow, just come on in. He's gonna have a bunch of questions. I'll talk to everyone. Bring him in, let's talk.
I bring him here?
Yeah. Okay. You can grab my order and you can go.
Okay.
11 p.m., Chris added Agent Graham Coder to his contacts. He then texted Addie that he just got done with the FBI and that they had the case now. After the interview, Sergeant Egan advised that he believed Chris would travel to 12255 Claude Court in North Glen. He did not. He followed Nick and Amanda Thayer to their home in Thornton. Did you catch that? Did you catch it? Tuesday, August 14th, Sergeant Egan advised that he believed Chris Watts would travel to an address of 12255 Claude Court in North Glen. If you didn't catch it, that means Tuesday, August 14th, 2018, law enforcement already knew about some sort of relationship between Chris Watts and Nichol Kessinger, because the address that Sergeant Egan thought Chris Watts would go to after his interview, 12255 Claude Court, was Nichol Kessinger's address at that time. Chris didn't go there though. As I said, he went to Nick and Amanda Thayer's and had pizza. He spent the night there. He told law enforcement that he went to bed around 12:30 a.m. August 14th, Mark Jameson, Chris's longtime best friend, said that was the last day that he talked to Chris. He said that he texted Chris that if he needed anything to let him know. Chris said, "Thanks, man," and that he was really busy, but he would reach out if he needed to.
When's the last time you talked to Chris?
I talked to him, I think it was Tuesday before that Wednesday he had confessed. And it was just through a text message.
Okay.
But that was the last time I had contacted him.
Did you initiate that, or did he?
I initiated it.
Okay. And was there like a back and forth conversation, or how did that go?
No, it was just me basically saying, I hope he's okay, I hope the family's okay, that I knew he was busy and he's probably got a lot going on, and that if he needed to speak to me or if he needed anyone to talk to, he could let me know. And then he just reached back and said, thanks, man, and yeah, he's been busy, and that was it.
Okay.
Now, Mark Jameson is an interesting character too. He seems to be all up in the marital business, though we don't hear much about him, do we? I mean, we've talked a little bit about him, and we will likely talk more about him in the future. But one more thing before I leave you today. Chris Watts said during this interview that during a conversation with Nichol Kessinger on this day, Tuesday the 14th, Nikki got weird. Chris said that he heard from Nikki after she had met with the CBI or FBI, but he didn't know who she met with first. Chris said Nikki told him not to contact her until all of this was done, and also said that she was going to be staying at her friend Jim's place while this was all going on, and told Chris this is probably the last time you'll hear from me. She told him to delete everything, delete all of their conversations. Take a listen.
Yeah, like some of the conversation, like on the 14th, got a little weird. I think that's when she met with CBI or something, or FBI. I'm not sure who she met with first. She had told me, like, this is the last time you'll probably hear from me. I'm going to stay at my friend Jim's place while this is all going on. She said not to contact her until this is done. She told me to delete everything. I didn't delete everything.
Tuesday, August 14th, Nikki hadn't met with CBI or FBI, or even talked to any law enforcement yet. She called her dad on Wednesday morning, the 15th of August, and her first interview was on the 15th of August. So did she talk to Chris after that first interview? It would make more sense, because that's the interview where Detective Philip Jones told her that they have the ability to recover deleted text messages. And she says, oh, all high-pitched.
So there's special software we can plug your phone into, and even if it's deleted, we can still retrieve the contact.
Oh. She also still had Chris in her phone at the time of that interview, and they were actually trying to get her to possibly reach back out to Chris to get info, believing that Chris would tell Nikki things he wouldn't tell anyone else.
If you feel like taking a phone call, you take a phone call. If it's a text message, you can do that. That's up to you. I'm not going to direct you at this time to do anything. But if it comes to that, where we think that might be helpful, then we'll reach back out.
They even said further down the line they may need to do that. Nikki's father suggested that Nikki reach out to Chris by text so that anything said would be in writing.
Just me, I would say texting, because it's in writing and you don't have to get personal. That's just me.
I mean, I asked him to leave me alone. He's pretty respectful of the things that I have to say to him. So.
Well, why wouldn't she have done exactly that? That would have been clear evidence that she knew nothing. Instead, she tells Chris, delete everything, and then tells Kobach that the last time she talked to Chris was Tuesday the 14th. Now, according to Nikki's phone records, she didn't call Chris on the 15th. So this conversation would have either been through text, or she could have called from another phone, like Jim's. Jim was with her. Chris even said he knew Jim and Jim knew him. So it's very possible she didn't want that trail anymore, so she used Jim's phone to talk to him after this. Because if she talked to him on the 15th, then she's a damn liar. Well, we already know that. I don't know. I do know that law enforcement had those emails between Chris and Nikki, and they were working their way up the ladder at this point. I firmly believe that someone from Anadarko tipped Nikki off, and that's what caused her to quote-unquote remove Chris from her phone and her life, and also prompted her to call Daddy to help her out. That is when she reached out to law enforcement. You will see the evidence of this with receipts, as always, in the next video. Please have a great rest of your day, your week, your weekend. Please be safe, be happy, be healthy, and most of all, be unapologetically you. Bye-bye.